Welcome to Core Conversations, where we explore the issues that matter most to families of wealth. Today I'm speaking with Keith Whitaker. Keith is the president of Wise Counsel and is the author of many books, including Voices of the Rising Generation. He helps families around the world prepare their young people for the complexities of wealth, particularly with an eye to character. And that's what we're going to be talking with Keith about today, how to invest and develop character in young people and prepare them well for wealth. Keith, welcome to Core Conversations. It's so good to have you with us.
Well, thank you, Andrew. It's great to be with you.
Keith, you write extensively on issues to do with young people and wealth. And in your writing, especially in the book Voices of the Rising Generation, which I absolutely commend to people to read, you explore many challenges faced by young people from families of wealth. And you emphasize the role of character formation in preparing heirs in order to navigate the complexities of wealth. Why is character formation so important, especially in the context of living well with wealth?
Well, it's a great question, Andrew, and I appreciate your kind words about Voice of the Rising Generation. Thank you. I'm actually going to respond with a quotation from one of our more recent books, Complete Family Wealth, where we use the quotation, I think it's a Chinese quotation originally, that if you're planning for a year, grow rice. If you're planning for a decade, grow trees. If you're planning for a century, grow human beings. And I think that this quotation gets at the centrality of character to our lives. That human life is not only about what we eat, although that's certainly important. It's not only about shelter, although that's important too. Really, our character is where we live. Every day, every moment, we inhabit our character. And so thinking about character and working on character is important for all of us. And it's certainly important as well for those who have significant financial resources at their disposal. And on that point about the importance of character for wealth, I actually have one other quotation I wanted to share. I was last night reading just offhand Walt Whitman's preface to his famous book, Leaves of Grass. And in the preface, he says, here, I'll just read it from the book. He says, "The most affluent man is he that confronts all the shows he sees by equivalence out of the stronger wealth of himself." And I think that quotation, we could spend a long time on it, but I think what it really gets at is that your character is your true wealth. That's what you truly own. No one can take that away from you. And if you have a strong character, if you have a treasury in yourself, then you can meet the shows, the pretense, the fakery of this world with your own inner strength. And so, again, I think that shows the centrality of character, especially to those of us who have some financial means to dispose in the world as well.
And again, in the book, you reference a number of personas that people may wear in order to cope with or perhaps be the person they should be with wealth, including, I think, the stealth wealth is one of those personas. There's another, I think, the grand giver and a few others. Can you maybe talk to a few of those and explain how they come about and why they come about?
Sure. So on the question of character and the impact of wealth on character, I think one thing that can be freeing for people who grow up within a family of wealth is to recognize that character is inevitable, right? And so asking yourself, what is my character, is a way to begin to reflect on the impact that your wealth, your family, your surroundings have had on your character. And as you've indicated, there are dangers that significant financial wealth can pose to character. There is dangers that the absence of financial resources can pose to character as well. But the dangers I'm thinking of are not only the kind of usual ones of thinking about maybe greed or spending too much or wasting money, but some of the more subtle ones that affect people growing up in families with significant wealth would be, as you said, anxiety, for instance, the stealth wealth person who wants to hide his or her financial resources from friends, co-workers, others in the community, and really not live to their own means, perhaps live so far beneath their means that they do harm to themselves. I think another very common character type that I see in my work with families is sort of the dutiful steward, is what we call him in the book. And that is someone who is really focused on how do I steward well the resources that I've received from prior generations. And there's nothing wrong with stewardship in and of itself, but if it's all that you're doing, you have to ask yourself, whose life am I leading? Whose life am I living? Am I living someone else's dream? Am I stewarding someone else's goal? And when do I start living my life?
Can you touch on some of the things that get in the way of young people from families of wealth working out those questions, who I want to be, who I want to become? You've touched on, expectations people may hold of you, assumptions they may hold about you, the sense of overwhelming achievement that they feel of their parents. There are many things that get in the way. What else gets in the way of young people trying to form and think about their own character?
Well, that's a great question. So what gets in the way of forming our character? Because again, our character always forms. All of us have some sort of character. We might have good character, we may have bad character. We may have good character in some respects and not so great character in other respects. So first and foremost is recognizing that character is inevitable, it is formed, and it's always being formed. But then what gets in the way of being reflective and purposeful in shaping our own character? Well, part of it you've pointed to is our tendency always to look outside of ourselves. So all human beings look for the approval of others, starting with our own family members, especially our parents or grandparents. And that's a very healthy thing in that it helps us guide our choices early on in life. It can be very, very safe and promote good habits. But it can also lead us to be thinking always about what others think of us and seeking to meet their expectations and wishes can leave one feeling very empty inside. And it also means that when we don't have those others guiding us all the time, we may feel at a loss, we may feel rudderless. So we need to develop that compass within. I think particularly to families with significant wealth, there can be an emphasis, as you said, on achievement, of living up to the achievements of ancestors or parents. And again, focusing on how can I jump that bar? How can I climb that mountain? And not focusing on, well, what is the achievement that is meaningful to me as an individual? What are the standards that I'm hoping to reach in my life? And again, focusing externally.
Keith, there's a great comment around the intentionality of creating or cultivating virtue. I guess there's many families, say second generation, where the first generation lived through struggle, they were forged through the difficulties of creating the wealth. The next generation didn't see that, doesn't experience that. The parents perhaps don't know what the kids are lacking in terms of character formation. They're not aware of the need to be intentional on these issues. What are your thoughts on how parents can have open eyes to see the need to be intentional about cultivating character that will really lead to success?
That's such an important question for parents because our parenting is always an opportunity at every moment, at every choice, to help instill character. So a lot of times parents will come to me and say, can you help us instill our values in our children? Or can you help us transmit the values that, say, our parents lived to our children? And my initial response always is, you've already been doing it, right? You've been doing it since your children have been born. So let's talk about what are the values that you have been living and instilling in your children already. Let's talk about what kind of behaviors, what kind of character you've been modeling in your choices, in your actions, not only in what you say. So as one of our colleagues likes to say, that values are caught, not taught, right? That it's by watching our parents and by picking up on what they do more than sort of what they lecture us about, that we learn our character and we begin to develop our own habits. Then I would say beyond that, beyond just being reflective about what you're modeling as a parent, I think for parents with significant resources, one of the things to focus on is to make sure that you don't let those resources take away opportunities for your children to be making choices and to be struggling, sometimes failing, picking themselves up. And that's so hard to do. This is where, as parents, we need to confront our own compassion, our own desire to take care of our children, to fix things and so forth. We have to confront that and say no to ourselves, because that's then saying yes to our children's opportunity to stand up and stand on their own 2 feet.
Colleges don't really prepare people along the lines you've just described. They emphasize perhaps competence and skills, all very important things, but not so much formation of character. How do I begin as a young adult taking steps to become a person of character of my choice? How do I begin that journey, given I'm not really taught that at university?
Right. So the question of how you begin, well, I would say that you are beginning right now, right? We're all beginning at this journey right now, because it all starts with our choices. Every moment of our lives is an opportunity for choice and reflection on that choice, and asking yourself, am I making the right one? And what do I even mean by the right one in this context under these circumstances? So that's where I would begin, is to say that I am doing it. I am building my character now through the choices that I make. Now then, choice leads to habits and the development of habits. That's the central term in thinking about character, is habit. What are my habits with regard to money, with regard to friends, with regard to things I'm afraid of, with regard to things that I find pleasurable? So what are the habits that I'm building? Every moment I'm feeding those habits one way or another. So reflecting on those habits and those choices is crucial. And then I would say, look for those activities where the opportunity is present of reflecting and building habits. So for younger people, a primary one is friendship, right? So thinking about your friendships. Are you a good friend? Who are your friends? How do you distinguish among friends? I suspect that one doesn't think of just everybody, who you're in contact with on Facebook or Instagram or so forth are all your friends. How do you distinguish those friends in social media from, quote, your true friends? And what does it mean to be a true friend? What choices are involved there?
Keith, you've touched on almost the entire curriculum of Core Venture, a program which you present on, and we really value your input. How's Core Venture unique in what it seeks to do in this space? And what would be some of your observations about why it's impactful?
Well, I think Core Venture is a wonderful program. I was so happy to be part of the development with you and others in the basic curriculum and ideas, and then also in the delivery of the first residential. And I think there are a number of things that make it unique, but just a few are, first of all, it's an experience for young people themselves to be going through this experience together, apart from their parents for the most part, bonding with each other. And so that by itself is pretty unique. Most of these programs, if any out there, are focused more on the parents and their parenting, or they're more didactic, right? So kind of teaching you rather than you're doing. So then I think in addition to that, some other elements that I noticed in spending time with the members of Core Venture were, first of all, that emphasis on struggle, that I was talking about a moment ago, that initial kind of outward bound experience is something that for a lot of people growing up in affluent homes, they just haven't experienced before, and certainly not experienced, being outside and having to fend for themselves and find food and so forth. So the emphasis on struggle. I also noticed a real emphasis on kindness towards each other. And so I think that goes beyond just the niceness that's preached in our society most of the time, but really taking care of each other, looking out for each other, wanting to take care of each other and be kind to each other. That was really striking. And then I think one third element that was also really noticeable was that there was such an emphasis on conversation. And I would say that character, as much as it's about the choices, the struggles, the development of habits, it also, for human beings, as say distinct from dogs or horses or such, it's developed through conversation, through our reflecting on ourselves and our talking with others and being confronted with others' opinions. And that's what I saw happening at Core Venture, that people really kind of said, well, why do you think that? Or why did you do that? And had a conversation about it. I think that's really crucial to the development of character.
Keith, such great wisdom, such a practical input you've given us. We really appreciate it. We also appreciate the books you write, and I commend those to those listening, and also the work of Wise Counsel, because you produce some great research for families of wealth that others would benefit from. So thank you again. Thank you for being a friend of Core Venture and for your time today.
Well, thank you, Andrew. It's a real pleasure to join you. Again, I'm very honored by my association with Core Venture, and just so amazed and grateful for the work that you're doing. So please keep it up.